Good morning, everyone. A good Erev Shabbos. Today we are starting the last Masechta of Seder Nashim, Maseches Kiddushin. It's a few parakim. We're making the Siyam on Tuesday, Rosh Hashanah. Remember, this started back around Purim time, I believe. I'm sure before Purim, after Purim, I don't remember the exact date. And now it's coming up to the end of the Seder and halfway through um, Shas. Baruch Hashem. Today's shir is sponsored was Aaron Nachum Simcha Cohen Yeshumor Chabeshem So Baruch Hashem Shmoleb and Miyam Moshe Ben Yosef Meir the Nashon will have an aliyah and for Shlema to Yisrael for Yisrael Ben Rachel Leah Rachel Bas Pesach Zoda Rachel Eliana Bas Yar Bracha Avram Yisrael Bar Risha Chaya Bas Tobabela for Shlema B'Sov Shar Chal Yisrael. And special shout out to our dear sponsor for Seder Nashim, the Imperial Advisory Group. They're an award-winning CFO advisory firm whose team of CFOs bring an average of more than 30 years of experience. They help businesses go beyond bookkeeping and accounting by providing strategic financial leadership, empowering leadership teams to make more informed big picture decisions. Learn more about Imperial Advisory at imperialgrp.com. Okay. Maseches Kiddushin, we had a whole Masech to talk about Gittin, and now we get into the more normal stuff. Kiddushin. What does it mean to Mekadosh and Isha? The Kiddushin is the halachic engagement. When you say someone gets engaged, someone a man asks everyone to marry her, now they're engaged. The engagement of the halacha has no significance only when they do Kiddushin. Kiddushin and Yisuin are really two stages. Kiddushin is the betrothal, and Yisuin is the actual wedding. Used to be back in the day, many years ago, that there was about a year's time between Kiddushin and Yisuin, and during that time, she was usher to all other men, but she cannot live with her husband yet. And if she had bia during that time, it's considered to be Asian adultery. And there's a whole discussion about Ibum. And during that time, if he dies and she's in Arusa, nowadays, Kiddushin and Yisuin are done at the exact same time under the chuppah and is separated by the Kriyas HaKsuba. It's all done in one shot, so we don't avoid a lot of those issues. Okay, here we go. Mishnah Perek Aleph, Mishnah Aleph in Kiddushin. Ha'isha niknes b'shlosha drachim. A woman is acquired by her husband in one of three ways. She's betrothed in one of three ways. But kones atma b'shtei drachim, and she acquires herself back. She becomes free from her bond with her husband and may remarry in one of two ways. So the Mishnah lists three ways in which a Kiddushin works. Niknes b'kesed b'shtar ovabiyah. She is acquired either through money, through an object of value, meaning like a ring or a bracelet or something of value. Through a Kiddushin document, through an actual star, or through bia, through intimacy. If he says to her that you should be betrothed to me with this act of bia, and then he has be with her, then she is now engaged, betrothed, and they're not, even though he had bia with her and now they're engaged, but they're not fully married yet, and they cannot have bia again until they do Yisuin. But the Chachamim said, we're not doing this anymore, and they put a stop to it for modesty reasons. What is going on? Okay, my screen is playing tricks on me. Okay. whatever. Because now we're going to talk about Kiddushin done with money. Because Beishamai Omen, Beishamai says Bediner or dinar. He must give her at least a dinar or something worth a dinar. Beisilo Omen Beisilo says Bepruta Beshar Pruta. Kiddushin may be performed even with a pruta, but the smallest coin, or something with a worth a pruta. I mean, like a small coin, meaning they give a penny, like a nickel. They're not in pennies anymore. Pennies been out of circular. Taken. We're not minted anymore. They're done. The comma he proved that how much is the pruta worth? Echa mishpona be'isar itavi. 1/8 of an Italian iser. So um, there's about 192 prutas in a dinar. Um, how much is that? Not really sure. Okay. The Kohen has asked him to get Misa Sabal, and a married woman acquires herself back either with a get, with both divorce, as we just spent all get talking about, or the death of her husband. Um, Ayavama Niknasibia. Now, how do you acquire Ayavama? The acquire Ayavama is married only by the Yavam through Bia. There's no Kesef, there's no star. He just he just had to live with her. The Kohen has also bechalitza says the Yavam. And if even if not performed, she can become free to marry anyone else through the process of chalitza or through the death of the Yavam, as we discussed back in Yavamas. Mishnah Beis. Avid every nickness because of a star. A Jewish servant is acquired with money or with a star, with a document. The Kohen has also bishanim, and he acquires himself back from his master. He goes free either by completing the 6 years of service, the Yovel, or at the beginning of the Yovel year, of a Gero and Kesef, or by deducting money. He deducts from his purchase price the value of the years that he served, and he pays the balance to the master. Yesera alav ama ha'ivriya. A Hebrew maidservant has an advantage over a Hebrew servant. I mean, the female has a advantage over the male. Shekona is asma b'siman. She also acquires herself back by developing signs of physical maturity. Well, once she reaches the age of 12 and grows to pubic hair, she's legally considered an adult. And at that point, she goes free, even if her 6 year term is not yet up. Our nirtza nikne britzia. A nirtza is acquired by his master for a new term of service by making a hole in the servant's ear. We've that's discussed in the Parshas Mishpat. The Kohen has asked of Yovel of Adam, and he acquires himself back from his master at the beginning of Yovel or upon the death of the master. Okay, let's continue. Mishnah Gimel. Evet Kanani nikne b'kesef b'shtar b'chazaka. An Evet Kanani is acquired through money. Master pays for him through a document or through an act of ownership. Meaning that it doesn't act as usually done by a slave for his master. Therefore, showing that the master owns him. Meaning, like for example, he takes off the master's shoes, or puts them on, he bathes them, or he rubs oil into his skin. That's the job of an Evid, or some say a wife, but mainly a servant to bathe and to do all these things. If he's not a servant, he's not going to do that for the master. The Kohen has also because of if he acquires himself back, he becomes free again through money given by others. Someone else pays, I mean, someone redeemed him or someone paid him out. This can only be done only by someone else. He cannot pay for himself. Because everything that he has belongs to his master. Therefore, he doesn't have any money with which he can buy his freedom. He can go free by accepting a freedom document himself from the master. I mean, because the master would have to give him a um, a star that says that now he's being released. This is according to Rabbi Meir. The Chachamim say because of a slave can go free even through money that he gives himself to his master, because it's possible for a slave to own money, as we're going to explain shortly. And he could also go free through a freedom document that other people accept on his behalf from his master, even if he does not know about it. According to the Chachamim, a document sets him free not only if it's acceptable by the slave himself, but even if it's accepted by someone else for him. A slave can pay for his freedom, provided that the money comes from other people. If someone gives money to the slave and stipulates that it should not become the master's property, so, such money doesn't indeed belong to the slave, and if he wants, he can use it to buy his freedom. Mishnah Dalet. A large animal can be acquired by handing it over, um, by handing over the reins to the buyer. To sell it, when you're buying a cow or you're buying a large animal, a bull, and you pay the money. So the acquisition takes place when the seller hands over the reins to the buyer. Similar, you pay for the car, the dealership stores. But a small animal can be acquired only by lifting. You're buying like a cat or a dog or whatever. You have to lift up the cat, lift up the dog, the sheep, whatever. But the animals that are too large to lift, then they hand over the reins. Different Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Eliezer. These are the words. This is the words according to Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Eliezer, that they're agreeing on this situation. The Chachamim say differently. A small animal can also be acquired by drawing it near to himself, since it's often difficult to lift even a small animal. Lifting is somewhat unusual, therefore it can be acquired even by drawing it near. Mishnah Hey, real estate. Niknin, the kesef is acquired through money. The buyer pays the seller over star or through a document, over chazaka, or through an act of ownership. I mean, the buyer does an act showing that he owns the property, then he digs a hole in the property, or he does something to fix it up. But movable objects, Eina Niknin Elab B'Mashicha, can be acquired only by physically taking possession of them, such as by drawing them close to oneself. In the chazon, movable property can be acquired together with real estate. The kesef will start over chazaka through paying money, giving a document, or performing an act of ownership. If someone bought both land and movable items together, when he uses one of these methods to acquire the land, he automatically acquires the movable items as well. And movable property can make real estate subject to an obligation to swear about. If there's a claim against a person for both movable property and land, in a case where he is required to swear that he does not owe the movable property, he must also swear that he does not owe the land. Although a person usually does not have to swear about a claim regarding land, in this case, since he has to swear about the movable item anyway, he must swear about the land as well. Mishnah Vav. Kol hanas danim ba'acher. Anything that needs to be evaluated in order to be used as payment for something else can be used to acquire something in the following manner. So, if two people want to exchange items, says as soon as this person acquires one item, the other person becomes responsible for the item given in exchange. When one person makes a kinyan on one object, the other person automatically acquires the other object. Kate said, "How does this work?" If someone exchanges his ox for another person's cow, or chamor bashor, or he exchanges his donkey for another person's ox. Once one of them acquires the other person's animal by making a kinyan, then the other person automatically becomes responsible for the animal that is given in exchange for it. Rishus so the treasury, the treasury of the base of English can acquire a movable item by paying money for it. While an ordinary person can acquire a movable item only by physically taking hold of it. By doing a kinyan with the item itself, such as drawing it near to himself. Ami Russell, the Gavoa, Kamisi Russell, the Hedger. In addition, if someone makes a statement to give something to the Beis Hamikdash, it is the same as handing it over to an ordinary person. Just as when a person hands over an object to someone else, the object automatically becomes the property of the second person. So too, when a person says that something should go to the Beis Hamikdash, it automatically becomes the property of the Beis Hamikdash. Mishnah Zayin. Kol mitzvahs have been ala av. All mitzvahs that a father must do for his son. Anashim chayivin v'nashim peturos. Men are obligated to do them, but women are patur. The father is obligated to do these mitzvahs, but a mother is not. The whole mitzvahs ha'aval ben, and all mitzvahs that a son must do for his father, that aim, both men and women are obligated to keep, and that both sons and daughters must do these mitzvahs. The whole mitzvahs and all positive mitzvahs that depend on time, meaning mitzvahs that a person must perform during, their time bound. Men are obligated to do them, but women are patur. Like for example, like here in the shofar, or shaking lulav, or those are all zman grama. However, all positive mitzvahs that do not depend on time, both men and women are obligated to do them. For example, both men and women have to put up mezuzahs on their doorposts, since that is a mitzvah that can be done at any time, is not time bound. Where all yisurim, whether they depend on time or do not depend on time, both men and women are obligated to observe them. For example, they are usher to do malacha on Shabbos, even though the Isser applies only during specific time. Chutz mi ba'al tashlis, all Isser apply to women except for the Isser not to destroy the corners of one's beard with a razor, ba'al takif, and the Isurim not to round the hair of one's head by cutting off the payas. Ba'al titame the mason, and in the Isser for Kohana not to become tame from corpses, from a mason. They can't. Those obviously the women don't have those Isurim, and female Kohanim are not obligated to, don't have the Isser of becoming Tamei. Mishnah Ches, Asmichos, leaning on the head of the animal offerings, but Tenufos, of waving certain offerings, Hagashos, bringing mincha offerings close to the Mizbeach, by Kamitzos, removing a fistful from mincha offerings, by Aktaras, burning offerings on the Mizbeach, by Malikos, slitting the neck of bird offerings, for Hazar, sprinkling the blood of Karbanos, by Kabbalos, and receiving the blood of the Karbanos. No, again, by Nashim, love and Nashim. They are all done by men and not by women, and they cannot, the women who do that is not kosher. It's do by a man. Chus mincha soda unazir shein manifos. Except in the cases of the mincha of a sota and the mincha of a nazira, who do indeed waive their karbanos. It applies to them. Mishnah Tes, kol mitzvah shehi tluya ba'aretz, and any mitzvah is dependent on land. He has to be dealing with the land of Eretz Yisrael. So the Shemitah and Chumas and Maisus, Eno Heges of Aretz, they apply only in Eretz Yisrael and not in other places. But any mitzvah is not dependent on the land, such as wearing tefillin, keeping Shabbos, they apply both in Eretz Yisrael and outside Eretz Yisrael, with some exceptions. All land-based mitzvahs apply in Eretz Yisrael except for Orla and Kilayim. Orla is the Isser to eat the fruit of the first 3 years of the tree's life, and Kilayim is planting grapes together with grain. Although these involve things that grow from the ground, they are kept even outside Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Eliezer Omer min hachodesh. Eliezer says also excluded is chodesh, which is the issue of eating from the new crop before the Korban Omer is born on the 16th day of Nisan. According to Eliezer, this applies even outside of Israel, even though it's a land-based mitzvah. And finally, Mishnah Yud, Kol ha'os mitzvah achas metivin lo. Anyone who does a single mitzvah, his mitzvahs and Averis are equally balanced. He does one mitzvah, which now tips the scales in his favor. Metivin lo, he is rewarded with good. Amarichin lo yomav, his days are lengthened. V'nochel es arz, and he inherits the world to come. However, if any person has one more Aveira than mitzvahs, he does not perform one more mitzvah, but remains with more Aveiras. He is not rewarded with good. His days are not lengthened. He does not inherit the world to come. Even though a person is rewarded for every mitzvah and punished for every sin, he can receive this reward and punishment in different ways. If he has more, so that's not a stira to the Mishnah. The Mishnah, anyone who's involved in the study of the Torah and Mishnah and behaves with decency, will not easily sin. As it says, and the three-ply cord is not easily cut. It says a cord made of 3 strings is strong and cannot be easily cut. A person who does these 3 activities is strong spiritually, or find it easier to avoid sinning. And anyone who does not involve in the study of Torah and Mishnah does not behave with decency, is not considered a member of society. He does not contribute anything to society, to be better off without him. Okay, have a wonderful Shabbos, and we'll continue on Sunday. Kol Tov. Thank you for joining us.